The thermometer on the dash read 37 below when Jake McLeod eased his 18-wheeler onto the Mackenzie River ice road. The sun had slipped behind a bruised wall of cloud at noon and never bothered to come back, and the horizon was already dissolving into the color of steel wool. January in the Northwest Territories was never gentle, but tonight the weather warnings had carried an edge Jake hadn't heard in years. Still, the mine at Tuktoga needed diesel, and Jake had never missed a run in 12 seasons. He rolled through the gears, feeling the studs bite into solid ice 2 meters thick, and let the rumble of the engine settle the knot between his shoulders. Blizzard or no blizzard, the road was his territory. Straight, honest, unforgiving. Give it respect and it carried you. Take it for granted and it swallowed you whole. An hour north of Inuvik, the first flakes came sideways, small and angry. By the time he crossed mile 67, the wind was howling hard enough to make the sleeper cab vibrate. Visibility dropped to 5 truck lengths. He slowed to 30, then 20, hugging the reflective stakes that poked from drifting snow like brittle cattails. At mile 83, his radio crackled with static. The chatter was thin tonight. Most rigs had already pulled into way stations or turned back to town. Jake considered doing the same, but the mine's tanks were running on reserve. Diesel keeps the lights on, his dispatcher liked to remind him. And in the Arctic, lights keep people breathing. He was leaning toward calling it quits when something glinted in his high beams. A shape off to the right, half buried against a wind-carved ridge. For a heartbeat, he thought it was just scrap, maybe a fender lost last season. Then the object twitched. Headlights? No, too dim for a truck, more like a compact SUV. Windshield frosted white. What idiot drives a tourist vehicle onto an ice road in a blizzard? He muttered, easing off the throttle. When he crept closer, the hazard flashers winked weakly, one bulb strobing like a dying firefly. Jake stopped 50 meters ahead, engaged his brake, and yanked on every layer he owned. Down parka, balaclava, goose mitts. Wind clawed at him the instant he opened the door. The SUV looked smaller than a doghouse under drifting snow. The driver's door was cracked open but jammed by ice. Jake planted a boot and heaved until it gave way. A gust slammed Spindrift into his face. He spat out ice crystals and cursed. Inside, a woman sat curled around a camera bag, teeth clacking. She jerked when he shouted over the wind. Up close, he saw her eyes, black coffee against skin gone pale with cold, and a smear of frost on lashes. Engine died, she managed through chattering teeth. Battery, too. No sat phone? Jake asked. Left it at the lodge, bad call. A sheepish half-smile fluttered and vanished. I guess I was chasing light. Jake's gaze dropped to the DSLR clutched in her arms. Chasing light, my ass. But adrenaline could wait, flesh couldn't. He reached into the cab for a thermal blanket and draped it around her shoulders. Name's Jake, truck's warm. You ride with me, we'll get you to the way station 10 miles back. You can thaw out there. Station's closed tonight, she said. He raised a brow. How you know? I shot photos there yesterday. The staff told me they leave at 5 and don't come back until morning. That checked out. The regulator's budget cuts kept skeleton crews. Jake chewed his lip. Storm like this could white out for 12 hours. If her vitals crashed in the meantime, he'd never forgive himself. All right, he said. My rig's got bunks and enough fuel to heat Yellowknife. Let's roll. It took them 10 minutes to transfer her gear. Jake slammed the cab door behind her and cranked the defroster. Warm air rushed out like a genie. The woman's shoulders slumped. Name? He prodded while resting the shifter back into gear. Maya Chen, wildlife photographer. Wildlife, huh? Kilometer 83's not exactly teeming with caribou tonight. Tell me about it. She rubbed numb fingers, then coaxed the camera from her bag. I was aiming for aurora arcs above the herd. Forecast said clear skies after midnight. The forecast lied, Jake snorted. We don't trust forecasts out here. We trust augurs, ice thickness, and our gut. Noted, she said softly. He rolled south at 15 miles an hour, peering through swirling snow. Maya cupped her hands around the cab heater vents. Her lips gradually regained color. When her shivering eased, she opened her laptop, tethered the camera, and began scrolling through thumbnails. Between glances at the road, Jake couldn't help noticing the images. Most were black rectangles, streaked with green lines aurora curtains, sure. But some frames contained shapes he'd never seen on tourist postcards. Veins of violet interlaced with scarlet nodes, as though the sky had woven circuitry. In others, luminescent whirlpools funneled into a single bright point near the horizon. Those northern lights look weird, he said. Your camera glitch? Maya's eyes flicked out. That's what I thought first time. But the patterns repeat. Exposure after exposure, same geometry. Jake looked again. The colors were deeper than any aurora he'd witnessed in 2 decades up here, and he'd seen some doozies. Coronas so bright they made snowdrifts cast shadows. But this was different, like staring into the electron coil of a neon sign the size of the atmosphere. You can't see those with your naked eye? He asked. No, they appear only in long exposure. At first I assumed it was sensor noise. Then I tried different cameras. Still there. Her voice lowered. I call them ghost bands. Well, Jake said, partly to mask the chill climbing his spine, maybe the camera sees wavelengths we don't. That's what physics says. She paused. But there's more. Look. She tapped an image where violet streams converged into a Y-shaped branching. Those intersections, they map onto magnetic flux lines, at least according to the satellite overlay I compared. Except satellites don't show this low altitude intensity. Whatever this is, it's happening closer to the ground than standard auroras. Jake felt the wheel tremor from gusts. Or was it his hands? He forced calm. Meaning if we could follow one of these branches, Maya said, it might lead where the magnetic activity is strongest. Which could mess with radio, explain the static tonight. Way above my pay grade, Jake grunted. I haul fuel, not protons. She gave a tired laugh. Fair enough. The blizzard thickened. Snow hammered the windshield so brutally the wipers stuttered. Ahead, the reflective stakes vanished. All around, only white. Jake slowed to 10. His GPS flickered, then died. Dash lights dimmed. Alternator? He cursed, tapped gauges. Voltage fine. Must be interference. He toggled high beams. The light ricocheted off curtains of snow, blinding him. He killed them. Darkness pressed in. Only the running lights painted 2 anemic cones on the ice. What's wrong? Maya asked. No eyes, and we're on a river. If I drift off the plowed lane onto thin crust, we're done. He flexed frozen knuckles. Gotta stop. He eased the rig to a crawl and parked, nose into the wind. The diesel's growl vibrated through the floor, still. A hush seeped around them, as if miles of snow muffled every decibel. Jake checked the clock. 7:42 p.m. He might be sitting here all night. The idea of idling on top of a river for 12 hours wasn't reassuring, but neither was driving blind. Maya zipped her parka to her chin. If radio and GPS are scrambled, maybe we can navigate by the aurora. Jake lifted a brow. Aurora, I can't see. Not by eye, by camera. She angled her screen. See this intersection? It's roughly north-northwest of here. If the branches correlate with magnetic field lines, the brightest node might sit above land, where crustal rocks amplify the field. Could be a ridge or drumlin, maybe a ranger cabin, Jake considered. Ranger cabins dotted the valley every 30 kilometers, stocked with split logs and propane. He'd slept in 2 before, waiting out ice road repairs. If one stood where Maya speculated, they might reach solid ground and a stove. But basing a route on invisible light seemed lunacy. Look, Maya said, hearing his silence. I get this sounds crazy, but the alternatives are staying parked on a river that shifts every hour or trying to drive blind. She swallowed. Cameras don't lie, Jake. Something's glowing out there. Something stable enough to photograph in 30-second exposures, despite this wind. He stared at the screen, then out the windshield. Snowflakes hurled themselves against glass, suicidal. All right, he muttered. How far? Maybe 8 miles, judging from the angle. Truck does 5 miles an hour tops in this soup. Lens our compass, then. She smiled, the first real smile he'd seen crack through frost, and opened the passenger window a sliver. Snow hissed in. She propped the camera on the sill, facing into night, and began a long exposure. Jake killed interior lights. Darkness swallowed them. The shutter clicked open, with a faint snick. 30 seconds later, a beep sounded, and the image appeared. Green backdrop, purple veins, a blazing cobalt knot 10 degrees to port. Turn left 3 degrees, she said. 3 degrees? You know how much slack these tires slide on ice? Fine. Aim the knot mid-windshield. Jake chuckled despite himself. He released the brake. The rig inched on, guided by an aurora map no human eye could see. Every few minutes, Maya shot another frame, calibrating their heading. Jake watched the cobalt knot drift from right side to center, from center to left, then back again, adjusting wheel with fists he could barely feel. The diesel growled, the blizzard screamed, and yet in the cab a strange hush bloomed, an intimacy forged by trust in something unseen. Why wildlife? Jake asked, partly to stay alert. Maya's gaze stayed on the live view. My parents ran a convenience store in Toronto. No windows, buzzing fluorescents, same 4 walls 18 hours a day. I craved sky. Animals live by sky-sun position, moon cycle, stars. Photographing them feels like learning the original language. Jake nodded. My old man drove haul trucks down the Dempster. Ma said diesel was his blood. Guess I inherited. You like it? I like the road. Hate the silence sometimes. His jaw tightened. Lost a brother on this ice. Went through a pressure ridge 3 winters back. They found the rig 50 feet under. Maya's fingers paused on the shutter. Outside the blizzard roared, but inside nothing moved. I'm sorry, she whispered. Jake shrugged, as if frost made emotions brittle. He taught me never to stop for shadows, keep moving. But tonight, you weren't a shadow. Warmth pooled behind his sternum. He swallowed against its burn. Maya lifted the camera again. New image. The knot blazed larger, now filling a quarter of the frame. She gasped. We're close. The snow thinned, flakes turning lazy. Shapes emerged, low spruce, humped drifts. Then a wooden outline, a cabin with tin roof half buried to its eaves. No light, but the chimney stood proud. Jake parked beside a banked snow wall. He killed the engine, and for the first time in hours, silence reigned. The blizzard had blown past like a tantrum. They trudged to the door, shoulder-checking drifts. Inside, gloom smelled of pine and old smoke. Jake found a propane lantern, cranked the mantle. Amber glow spilled across bunks, a small cook stove, and stacks of cut birch. He set to work firelighting while Maya unpacked her camera. Within 15 minutes, the stove crackled. Heat spread like honey, thick and sweet. Maya removed her gloves, flexing pink fingers. Thank you, she said. Least I could do, Jake replied, stoking embers. She set the laptop on a crate and brought up the latest shots. Look. The knot now resembled a comet tail, only inverted, pointing down instead of up. A column of cerulean light traced sky to horizon, rooted somewhere beyond the cabin. What if, Maya murmured, these are Earth lights, plasma funnels, connecting the ionosphere to ground charge areas. Maybe they're strongest where permafrost fractures release ions. Jake laughed softly. Talk science all night if you keep feeding the stove. She grinned, fed it, and did exactly that, explaining charge differentials, particle collisions, camera sensor spectral range. He countered with stories of axle breakages, skids, Close calls with thin ice. Between topics, they brewed tea, shared instant ramen, and let silence gather like embers glowing blue. Outside, wind tapered to rustles among spruce. Near midnight, Maya glanced through the frost-rimmed window. Clear skies, she whispered. They stepped outside. Above them rippled curtains of green, familiar yet newly tender. Then Jake saw something impossible, faint violet threads riding the green arcs, pulsing in the same geometry he'd glimpsed on her screen. They were dim, one might mistake them for imagination, but they were there. Do you see it? Maya asked, voice trembling. Yeah, Jake exhaled. Guess eyes adjust to wonder after a while. They stood close, shoulders touching, watching colors dance across infinity. The cobalt knot they had chased crowned the celestial river like a lighthouse. Jake felt a tug inside, the same tug that kept him on the road year after year. Not the paycheck, not pride, but witnessing raw forces moving, indifferent yet glorious. Maya lowered her camera. I used to think photography was about capturing things before they vanished, she said. Tonight I realize it can reveal what's been here all along, waiting for us to slow down and look. Jake turned to her. The aurora's glow painted her face green and purple like a forest sprite. He could see breath plumes mingling between them, warm merging with warm. He felt the urge to close the gap, but nerves, forged of years alone, held him still. Maya solved the hesitation. She leaned in, pressing a gloved palm to his cheek, rose on tiptoe and kissed him gently. The kiss tasted of mint tea and wood smoke, and something cold that melted instantly. Behind his eyelids he saw color violet veins, cobalt knots, a private aurora. When they separated, she rested her forehead against his. Thank you for stopping, she said. Thank you for showing me what I couldn't see, he replied. They went back inside, stoked the fire until the stovepipe thrummed, and unrolled sleeping bags side by side on the lower bunk. Conversation drifted toward plans. She needed rides to remote river bends where ghost bands congregated. He knew the routes, the safe pullouts. Between her lenses and his logbooks, they could map the hidden lights, maybe publish a study. He liked the idea of hauling more than diesel, hauling discovery. Exhaustion finally drew them under. As Jake hovered on sleep's edge, he felt Maya's head nestle in the crook of his arm, and a thought shimmered through him like ribbon light. Some roads run across ice, others across hearts. Both are fragile, but brave souls travel them anyway. Morning arrived, wrapped in pastel sherbet. Outside, snowfields glittered under sun, windless, harmless. Jake checked the radio comms restored. A maintenance crew would grade the road by noon. He and Maya packed, doused the stove, left a logbook note about the guest night. Before climbing into the rig, Jake lifted Maya's camera toward the empty blue sky. Anything up there? She chuckled. Daylight hides the ghosts, but trust me, they're still dancing. He handed it back, then cupped her hand in his, warming her fingers. Next blizzard, he said. I'm making sure you're in my passenger seat from the start. Deal, she answered, squeezing. He eased the truck onto the trail. The road south unfurled like a ribbon of light, and though the sky was ordinary blue, Jake felt the unseen auroras guiding every mile, violet veins of possibility stretching between him and the woman beside him, glowing just beyond human sight, yet clear as promise.